welcome back to Fourth and Goal with your host, Joey Lafko.
I'm Robert Westerman.
And we have a lot of great topics to get right into today. Robert, it's starting off with the draft. We're looking at the Bears today. We're going to try to evaluate what they really need for their team. Robert, what do you think that they need additionally to Caleb Williams?
So it's pretty obvious who they're going to take with the number 1 overall pick. I mean, I think there is the possibility they go with Jaden Daniels.
Really?
I think there's
there's
a slight
possibility.
I think there's a possibility because I think some people aren't sold on Williams just because of how he did last year. And then we kind of saw a little bit of, I guess you could really call it a kind of a mental breakdown latter part of the season.
On the sideline with his mom?
Yeah, I think that. But, I think with the way that their season was going, I think that was kind of warranted. I think a little bit extreme, but, I think that's maybe something the coaches are looking at. But he did just take an official visit with the Bears. I think it's a pretty much a guarantee. It's a lock. You can safely say it's a lock. So they go with him with the number 1 pick, but they also have the number 9 pick, which still, I mean, there's going to be a lot of great talent available. Now, the question is, are they going to go with a defensive player? Or are they going to go with an offensive player? And I think they should go with a defensive player. A lot of people think they should go with the wide receiver because there are a lot of good wide receivers available in this class.
Especially at that high of a pick.
Right, with the number 9 pick, I mean, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. will probably already be taken, and then Malik Neighbors from LSU will probably already be taken.
They're both gone.
But you're going to still have some great options. Romeo Dunze comes to mind. But defensively, Cooper DeJean, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He's supposed to be healthy by the time the draft comes. And I've seen some mock drafts take Dallas Turner, the defensive end from Alabama, who's done some great things. So I think there's a lot of really solid options, but I think the Bears should go with someone defensive. And honestly, I was looking at defensive stats from last year. The Bears' defense was not as bad as I thought.
Right.
Fox Sports had them ranked 12th based on total defense, which is really not that. It's actually not that bad. I thought it was going to be.
They gave the Browns a huge fight when they played them late in the season too with Joe Flacco when they were on fire. They were on fire, and it came down to that last play. The defense was really good, and the defense was really good last year. So, I mean, when we talk about who they need to take at the draft, you think it's a defensive player. At my end of the side, I think it's going to be an offensive lineman. I think that they need more depth in that offensive lineman room. I mean, they were good with their starters, right? They were fine. Their offensive line was not terrible, but what I really think the Bears need to focus on, if they're going to be drafting Caleb Williams number 1 overall with the best quarterback in this draft class, they're going to need to protect him at max protection. No mistakes can be allowed in that offensive line next year, because that's really what is going to pressure Caleb Williams so much into maybe having a bad season if he doesn't have a good offensive line. I mean, that's the biggest thing quarterbacks have to deal with when entering the league: the speed, the quickness of the defense. So that offensive line becoming elite is, I think, Chicago's top priority, and I think that they should take Lucas Patrick. He was a really good. No, not Lucas Patrick. Sorry, J.C. Latham. He's an offensive lineman, and I think that the Bears could take him at number 9, and maybe even consider trading up to the number 7 pick if the Titans would be willing, to get Joe Alt.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a stretch.
I think the thing with the Titans is that they badly need a left tackle to protect Levis, so
True.
I don't see them giving up a pick. And honestly, I don't think the Bears need to trade up because they already picked up Coleman Shelton from the Rams, who's an offensive lineman, and they also got Jay Curran from the Seahawks. Now, I don't know. I honestly haven't heard of those players before. Right. I don't know if they're good or not. I would assume they're probably pretty decent. And we were talking earlier about the wide receivers. They got Keenan Allen, and they also got DeAndre Swift as a running back.
Right.
Who's also, he can obviously be a receiving option as well. So I think paired with DJ Moore and Brandon Powell as the number 3, I think that's a great receiver room.
It is a great receiver room.
So I think going back on what I said, I think defensively, I think that's where the Bears should go. But then again, I mean, do they need a left tackle? I don't know if either of these guys are left tackles or not, but picking up a good lineman in the draft, you can never go wrong with a lineman, and I'll stick to that forever because linemen are so important, and obviously on both sides, but I think offensive linemen especially because, like you said, the league nowadays, there's just not a lot of time. There's not a lot of time. The defensive ends are so freaking fast that they get to the quarterbacks insanely quickly. I don't know how the Bears performed last year.
Well, the thing is, with their offensive line, they performed decent, but those guys got banged up, and it really tested their depth. And they did not have good depth in that O-lineman room. So that's where I think they need to prioritize really building their whole offense together so they will be able to be an elite offense in the league next year rather than focusing more on their defense, which they do need a defensive edge and a lineman, a defensive edge and defensive
Well, they
lineman.
got Montez Sweat.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, they still do need one. I mean, on the defensive end of the ball. And I see how taking a defensive linebacker in the draft would be tempting over a lineman, but I think an offensive lineman is the way to go for the Bears. They need to focus on getting that offense complete in all areas, not only just the starters, but the depth as well, so they will be able to protect Caleb whenever he needs to be protected.
I mean, I think, well, the Bears have already gotten some pretty good defensive signings. Obviously, getting Montez Sweat is big.
Yeah.
And then they got Kevin Byard from Philadelphia, who, is obviously he's one of the better safeties in the league. So I think defensively they're definitely improving. Obviously, the Bears are in a huge rebuild.
Yeah, they are.
And they're obviously going to center it around Caleb Williams. So I think taking a lineman is not a bad thing, but I think that they can utilize the 9th pick with a strong defensive player. And I think, like you said, they need another lineman, and why not get Dallas Turner?
Yeah.
Right? Why not get Dallas Turner?
Because,
to be paired up with Sweat on the defensive end.
You're right, but the reason why they should not get him is because of J.C. Latham and the offensive lineman on the board at number 9. That's who I think will add the depth that the Bears need. I mean, you see their backup offensive linemen that they did not perform well at all when it mattered, and you need those guys to come in, especially for protection with the quarterback, the brand new quarterback who is just not going to be used to the speed.
Well,
of
I
the
don't.
NFL.
I mean, the thing is that Caleb Williams had terrible linemen his last year at USC, and he performed insanely well. Now, obviously, he's going to be in the NFL.
Yeah,
it's a way different story.
Yeah,
but I honestly think Williams is so talented that I don't know if. And I don't even. I mean, obviously, having the 9th pick is a huge deal, but this pick is not going to make or break the Bears. So, like, is it important who they take here? Obviously, like they can get a great offensive lineman,
right.
They can get a great wide receiver, they can get a good defensive player. So they have. I mean, I think either 3 of those are great.
They have great options, but I think what they need to do is perfect one side of the ball first, right? Either go with the defense or go with the offense, and you're going what it seems like with the offense. They just completely rebuilt their offensive room. They're getting Caleb Williams in there, and they, like you said, got Keenan Allen and some wide receivers. So I think what they really need to do is focus on just completing one side of the ball, perfecting it, basically, kind of like how the Browns did. I mean, their perfect side of the ball was the defense last year, and that kept them in the season. But what the Bears need to do if they're going to be investing so much money and just picks with the number 1 pick of being Caleb Williams, they just need to perfect, I think, that side of the ball where they're taking the first overall pick with a quarterback. I think they just need to perfect his room, his side of the game, so I guess Williams can have the best season he can have. So there are no excuses really to fall back on if he performs not the best.
I mean, like we said, I don't think the Bears can really go wrong with either 3 of the options that we've been talking about. I still just think a defensive player is the best option here because I think there are a lot of really solid defensive players. And personally, with DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, they also got Gerald Everett, who's a pretty solid tight end. And then obviously DeAndre Swift in the backfield. Like, I personally just don't think offensively they need anybody. I don't think they do. I think, like you said, I think your argument makes sense because there are good offensive linemen in this class, and as I said, taking a lineman is never a bad thing because they are one of the most, what's the word? That position is so important and people don't
And
talk
crucial.
about it enough. People don't talk about it enough.
Yeah.
But again, I think Williams, if I were the Bears front office, I would be looking to take a defensive player because I think Williams is good enough. One offensive lineman is not going to make a huge deal.
I guess that is a good point
They
to
also
make.
signed two more. They also signed two already this offseason. And if they really, 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 really need somebody, they can figure that out later on. But I think that with the defensive options in this class and the fact that they have the 9th pick, I think they should go with either Dallas Turner or Dijon, who's a solid cornerback from Iowa.
Again, I think if you're the Bears with the number 9 pick, you can't go. I guess you can't go completely wrong here. That's a good pick that you have. I think they should still take J.C. Latham just to complete that offensive lineman room, really get those guys ready for this season coming ahead. And
is he a left tackle?
He is not a left tackle. Joe Alt's a left tackle, but he's
because when you've got a right hand throwing quarterback, you need a good left tackle to protect the blind side.
Yeah, they already have. They already have a good left tackle starting. The thing.
Okay.
This is the problem. Their depth is the problem, and offensive linemen get injured pretty often.
All the time.
Often.
I mean,
exactly.
they're in the trenches every play.
Exactly.
Right.
So, I really think what they need to do is take up on J.C. Latham, offensive tackle at number 9. Again, just to complete that room, just complete that offense.
Now, you mentioned earlier how it's possible the Bears could trade up to the 7th pick. I don't see that happening just because the Titans have a very specific need this offseason,
right?
And that's a left tackle. So there's another team that is potentially trading up, and that's the Vikings. A lot of people think they're going to trade up and take a quarterback, but an article came out last week saying that Sam Darnold is going to be the starting quarterback. And obviously, just because you name a starter doesn't mean that you don't need a backup.
Right.
But, what does that mean for the Vikings in trading up?
If the Vikings don't trade up this draft, I don't think they will take a quarterback just because they said that they would be starting Darnold.
If they don't trade up
this draft, I don't think they're going to take a quarterback this draft just because you need to trade up if you're the Vikings to get a good quarterback. If you don't want to trade up, if you don't want to make that risk, if you don't want to take Jaden Daniels or Drake May, then I don't know. I think that's going to be a next year problem for them. They're just going to have to go with Sam Darnold as the starter this year.
Well, the thing is that the Vikings have the 23rd pick, and I think there's still going to be good quarterbacks available. Penix Jr. might even make it to the 23rd.
You think?
Well, the thing is that a lot of people have the Raiders taking him with the 13th pick,
right?
Which I think is a good choice.
That is a good choice.
I think that's a good choice. And even if he gets taken at 13, the Vikings are only 10 picks after that, and I think Bo Nix is still going to be available. And I personally, and I argued this not that long ago, one of the past episodes, that Bo Nix I think is better than Penix Jr. I really, really, really like Bo Nix. I really like what I saw from him at the Combine and the Pro Day. And I think he'd be a great fit for Minnesota because he's kind of got that Kirk Cousins style. I feel like he's got a good throwing arm. And Nix has a ton of experience now. I think Penix and Nix utilize their 5th-year option. So I think they both have 5 years of experience. But I like Nix more just based on what I've seen in the film. And I think he's underrated. I also think he has a better throwing arm than Penix. And obviously just because he has a better throwing arm now doesn't mean Penix can develop into a better player. But I think for what the Vikings need, if Sam Darnold were to go down, they need somebody ready to go right away. And I also think Las Vegas is just kind of a better fit for Penix. I feel like the Vikings fit Nix better. And someone else that hasn't been talked about that much is Sam Hartman. He's another decent option. Now, I think he's worthy of a first-round pick. Maybe not. But he played pretty well at Notre Dame last year. And he had some excellent years at Wake Forest. And Wake Forest is not even a top program. And he had put out some tremendous numbers at a program that was probably outperforming its talent. So, I think those are all things that you have to take into consideration. So I don't think the Vikings should trade up because if they're looking for a quarterback, there's still going to be good ones available with the 23rd pick.
I guess that is a good point. There are good options that will still be on the board, but I think what's more important is who is going to be succeeding Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. they need to have a very good quarterback to be succeeding Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, because that's the hype that they've built around their team for so long. They were good with Kirk Cousins. They had good quarterback play. Now I think it's the time that they need to be investing in a very good quarterback to succeed that.
So let me ask you a question. Is Sam Darnold there temporarily? Like
100%.
Right,
I think he's that bridge quarterback of that year of kind of like the Tyrod Taylor in Cleveland when Baker Mayfield was under Tyrod Taylor. Right now when Jacoby Brissett is in New England, and whoever's going to be taking that rookie role under Jacoby Brissett's guidance. I mean, that's definitely what I think is happening here with Sam Darnold. I don't think this is a long-term gig for him.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I don't think Sam Darnold is a franchise quarterback whatsoever.
No, definitely not. But like,
just based on because he's moved around a lot recently. He was in LA, he was in San Francisco, and obviously with the Jets, who took him in what year was that? 2018. No,
2018. Yeah,
2018 with the third overall pick. Obviously, he didn't do all that great in New York. And then he's moved around a bunch. So I don't think.
But do you think he deserves another chance with the Vikings right now?
I think he deserves another chance, and I think for the Vikings, it's a good. I think he's a good starter for them right now, just based on who's been available. And again, we have to go back to the question of whether they're going to trade up or not.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to trade up, I think they're going to take McCarthy. Like, if they were to, like, for the number 2 pick, I definitely think that would be a great pick for them. It's more so if Washington wants to trade their number 2 pick. Right now, it seems like there's not really a trade option available for the Vikings to get up there, aside from, I don't even know. Maybe I'd say maybe New York at number 6.
Maybe. I think New York needs to stay there.
I agree.
I think they need to stay there because they need.
All these teams need to stay where they're at right now on the board, except for, I mean, like we have the Bears at 1, obviously, with Williams.
I mean, the top 3 teams need a quarterback.
They do,
right? The top 3 teams need a quarterback. Arizona does not need a quarterback.
They need a wide receiver, and
right. And
Harrison Jr. is going to be taken.
Or Neighbors is going to be there.
They're going to be both taken.
And then the Chargers obviously
also need a receiver.
They've Herbert, so they don't need to worry about a quarterback there. Yeah, so they're gonna. Yeah, so okay, potentially the Giants, but the Giants, they also need a quarterback as well.
That's right. And so I don't know what. I see pick 11 with Minnesota, and that's Penix Jr. That makes sense. I mean, that makes sense if they're taking a quarterback this season, but I don't know if they should invest in the other guys right now, like the guys you mentioned earlier at Bo Nix, or even, I don't know, who's the other quarterback you said was on the board at
Sam Hartman?
Sam Hartman. I just don't think that the Vikings need to invest in that right now if they can get a better pick next year. That's what I'm saying. Like, you don't want to take a quarterback right now that you don't have 100% confidence that can be as good of a succession.
They should wait another year?
I mean, if they can't get Penix Jr. or, I mean, maybe Bo Nix, but if they can't get Penix Jr., I don't know. I don't think so.
It's a tough question. It's a tough situation because
the Vikings need a good quarterback. They need a guaranteed good quarterback to jumpstart that offense. You can't wait around.
I blanked that the Vikings had the 11th pick. Yeah. So if they have the 11th pick and Penix Jr. is available, then I think it's pretty safe they'll take him there.
I feel like that is not a lock, but like as close to a lock as you could get without like saying it's a lock.
No, I think you're right.
Pick 11.
Just completely blanked that they had the 11th pick. The Vikings, they also have the 23rd. They've got 2 really good picks this year.
They have 2 really good picks. So I think what you're going to see is, obviously, if Darnold's going to be the starter, then they're going to draft. Let's say it's Penix Jr. right now. They'll have Darnold start. If he is horrible, they'll put Penix Jr. in there. But how long do you think Darnold would start if he plays better? If he plays good?
I mean, if he plays well, I don't see any reason for the Vikings to get rid of him. Right? I mean, there's no reason to just get rid of him. I think
this is a good opportunity for Sam Darnold, honestly.
Well, I think it's a good opportunity for him, and I think it's a good opportunity for whoever they draft because they'll get some time to develop.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Sam Darnold's obviously got experience. He's he's still on the younger side. He's still on the younger side. I think he's been in the league since 2018, so this will be what, his 7th year?
Yeah.
So, I think he's got some years under his belt, and whoever's going to be behind him is going to learn some things from him, which I think is good. I think if Darnold proves himself, I don't see a reason why he can't, become that guy in Minnesota. I don't see it happening just because I don't think he's really got the potential anymore. He had the potential when he was drafted, but I don't think he
doesn't have it anymore.
I just don't think he's got what it takes anymore.
Yeah.
But I think the Vikings are in a good spot because they take someone in the draft. They've got Sam Darnold as a starter. I think they're honestly looking pretty good, and they've got great receivers, and they got Aaron Jones. So.
Yep. I mean, Vikings are looking good this draft. If they don't take a quarterback, I would be surprised. But if they don't, they'll take one next year, I'm sure.
And there's another quarterback that just signed a deal recently, Carson Wentz, going to Kansas City. What does this signing kind of mean for them? And in terms of a backup, how does Wentz fit into that with Mahomes?
I mean, Wentz, I guess, is a solid backup. It's a solid backup pickup. But I feel like the question is, when will you need to back up Patrick Mahomes? If it's in the playoffs, are you going to rely on Wentz to be able to, let's say Patrick Mahomes?
I mean, it's all in the injury.
No,
because
exactly.
You will never take Mahomes out of a game, even if he's playing awful, because he's just,
he's Mahomes, bro.
That's the thing.
Exactly.
He's just
you can't
Mahomes.
take him out.
He's
But
Mahomes.
but let's say there's a sprain in his hand, right? That could heal in a week or whatever, but he has to be pulled out right away in the divisional round of the playoffs. Do you really think that Carson Wentz will be able to step up to the plate as a backup to be able to at least finish out the game for the Chiefs to be good? I don't think so.
Based on what, just recent
Just
years?
based on the team that they had last year. Think about the team that the Chiefs had last year to be able to win the Super Bowl. It wasn't even the best team. It was not a good. Not a good team at all. They were the underdogs throughout the entire playoffs, and Patrick Mahomes was the only reason why they got to win the Super Bowl.
Well, their defense also played some incredible football.
It's true. The defense, of course.
And they held the Ravens to 10 points.
Yes.
Clutched up big in some big moments.
You're right, but the main thing is scoring on offense.
Right. I mean, Mahomes was the main. Right. He was the focal.
And with those receivers last year, it was hard to do, and they just it was the Mahomes magic that brought them to the Super Bowl and won. Will Wentz be able to pick up the slack if he is injured for one game and where it matters? I don't think so.
Well, I mean, obviously Wentz is not the same playmaker that Mahomes is. It's not even really close. But I think with the backup, I think Wentz is honestly, I think he's okay.
You think he's okay?
I think he's okay. And
I think he's okay
too. There's a reason the Chiefs picked him up. I mean, the Chiefs, they know what they're doing. The Chiefs front office and coaches know what they're doing because they've made when they gave up Tyreek Hill, people were like, "You're crazy. You're not going to win." As soon as that happened, I feel like a lot of people, and I don't know how true this is, but I feel like at least for me, I was kind of like, "Oh, well, the Chiefs, they don't have a chance now that they gave up their best player," and then lo and behold, look what happened, right? So I think with picking up Wentz, then the front office knows what they're doing, and I think with a backup, you don't need to have a world beater in that position. You just don't.
It's true.
There's a lot of times, and like you said, you asked me, will he be able to come in and finish a game? Let's say the Chiefs are down a field goal, and Wentz needs to come in and clutch up for a drive. Now, do I have complete faith in him? I mean, no. Obviously, would I rather have Mahomes in there? Yes. But if Mahomes had to come out for an injury, I think Wentz could do it. The thing is that I feel like he just hasn't been playing as well. He just hasn't been playing as well. And based on that trend, obviously in Philadelphia, he had that incredible year where the Eagles got to the Super Bowl
with Nick Foles.
With Nick Foles, that's the thing. But
that's what I'm saying.
Wentz was a huge part of that.
Wentz was a huge part of it, but he wasn't in the times where it was clutch. I guess, for the
yeah, but
Super
the way
Bowl
he was playing that year, I don't know. Wait, just to make sure, did Wentz get hurt or did he get pulled because he was?
He got hurt. He got hurt.
Okay, that's what I thought. So I think if Wentz had kept playing, I don't.
Do you still think they would have gone to the Super Bowl? Really?
I think so. Just the way they were playing that year.
Maybe, but I don't know. I guess the question at the end of the day, the question is it a good backup quarterback pickup? When you have to answer the question, you have to look at who else was on the market. Was anyone else on the market at the time better than Wentz for the Chiefs backing up Mahomes?
No.
I mean, maybe not. Jacoby Brissett comes to mind, maybe.
You're such a Browns dude. You got that Browns bias. Anytime, anywhere, you got the Browns bias.
I don't know. Carson Wentz is a funny situation because he has been on like what 5 teams so far. He had that picture of him with all the different team gear on.
Yeah, I think he's got.
You can add the Chiefs to that now, but the question is, will he be a good backup quarterback if it matters? Like if they need to rely on him, will he be able to
I think so.
deliver? Maybe, I guess so. I mean, when I compared it to Jacoby Brissett, right? I took stats.
Right.
Okay,
Let's hear the stats.
2022, Carson Wentz. He had a 62.3% completion rate, 11 touchdowns to 9 interceptions, 1,700 yards. In 2022, Jacoby Brissett had a 64% completion rate, 2,600 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions.
You should be on the Chiefs front office.
Exactly. Jacoby Brissett would have been a better backup. That's what I'm arguing.
I mean, I'm not going to get you to go any other direction with that because I know you love Browns players. So.
Solid backup, solid pickup. Doesn't really mean anything else for the city.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, you can look at it however you want, but I mean, I really don't know how much of a big deal it is. I mean, obviously, if Mahomes were to get injured, then that's kind of a big deal. But
it would be funny to see Mahomes like break his leg week 1 and then Wentz has to play the whole season.
Mahomes just he like never gets hurt.
Yeah, it's true.
I feel like he doesn't get hurt,
really,
which is I think.
And when he is hurt, he plays through it like crazy.
That's another true point. But I also think Mahomes he's benefited a lot from not being hurt.
Yeah,
as much.
He definitely has.
Because I mean, we've seen a lot of quarterbacks get hurt, and then like Tua, I mean, he missed a full year of development.
Yeah,
because he was hurt.
Concussions and everything.
Yeah. So I think Mahomes he's been fortunate. Obviously, like you said, he's played through some things, but let's flip to this Rashee Rice multi-vehicle collision.
Boy,
obviously not a great situation for the NFL, but we talked in one of the previous episodes about we were talking. Oh, we were talking about the new rules, and kind of going off that, like, could the NFL, or I guess the NFL Players Association, rather, could they institute some sort of educational courses that might be mandatory for these players? Because I think that the thing, and it's kind of been a hot button topic, is how rookies, all those videos of how rookies spend their first $1 million.
Yeah, flash your cash.
Right, and most of them are, I don't remember the last time I watched one of those, but I think the one I did watch, it was like, oh, a new car, and some of them I feel like were like, oh, I put this towards savings, investing, whatever. But a lot of them don't really know how to manage that much money. And with college athletes now, we're seeing it in NIL. I mean, Caleb Williams is strolling around campus in a super fancy car, which, he makes a lot of money. So I think he's okay. But, it's easy. The other thing is like when people win the lottery, they actually end up worse off because they go and spend all their money. And then once the taxes hit them, they're bankrupt. So I think that's kind of a similar situation here. Like, there's no doubt that some rookies don't know how to spend that money. So, like, do you think the NFL could institute some sort of educational course or some sort of requirement that they have to fulfill?
Well, as you were talking about that, before when I was preparing for this episode, I really thought, well, yeah, once you get to the league, maybe there should be an educational system kind of implemented. But you were just talking about NIL. I kind of forgot for a second how almost all athletes in the NFL have to go to college because they have to play in college. So why not start this education at the collegiate level where they're still in college? They should mandatorily take the class that will prepare them for what's coming. Like if it's like Caleb Williams, let's say, has to take a class to be able to prepare for. Are
Are you gonna sit down or? We're recording.
Sorry. My bad.
What were you saying?
Oh my gosh!
Bro,
I
but
completely
you
got
come in and
interrupted.
it's like there's like 3 cameras.
Yeah, like,
Whatever. All right.
what?
I don't
Are
even
you
remember what
gonna
you were
sit
saying.
down?
I got so distracted.
Okay. Anyways, what I was saying was let's
Let's
regather our thoughts for a sec. Where are we at?
I'm just gonna say like we were
30 minutes.
just be like we were interrupted.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Quick interruption, but back to what I was saying. Kind of introducing these educational courses at the collegiate level, because I was thinking earlier, you were saying how everything starts now kind of with NIL money. This is a new concept, NIL money, with college athletes, but maybe implementing these educational courses when they are in college, when they're at that level, before even getting to the league, so it's not even a problem when they get to the league. I think that's a solution. But let's say that's not a possibility. You can't do it in college. The NFL needs to make it a priority, even if they have an educational course in college that I'm suggesting. They need to make it a priority to be able to properly educate these students. Not students, sorry, athletes. These athletes, when they get these millions of dollars, to be able to properly manage their money, to not get in multi-vehicle collisions, not ruin their life by doing stupid things. Like by this morning, for example, I think it was this morning. Yeah, it was this morning. 9:23 a.m. NFL draft prospect T'Vondre Sweat arrested on DWI charge. We see this all the time. NFL athletes throwing away what they have. I mean, with what was his name, Henry Ruggs? Henry Ruggs killing that woman, going like 130 miles per hour in his Corvette. This happens at least once a year or twice a year, and I feel like some people are. I guess it's not a feeling. Some people are getting upset about it. Like, I mean, it's obviously an upsetting thing to see. Like, if an athlete fresh out of college at 22 years old gets millions of dollars and is able to go 130 miles per hour on the freeway and then kill a random innocent girl, that's a problem. And that's a problem in a way, the NFL's hands. And they need to fix that. They need to implement whatever they can to be able to educate these athletes how to use their money, how to be able to be prepared to go in the real world. Because at the end of the day, they're not that much different in age between you and I. And if someone were to give me $10 million right now, I would probably blow it like an idiot too. And I would want that direction in education to be able to learn how to deal with it better.
I think you make some great points, but the problem with an educational course is that, one, at the end of the day, these players are out of the NFL's control when it comes to how they spend their money. Whether they give it to somebody to manage, some outside agency, or they control it on their own, or they be smart and invest some of it, et cetera, et cetera. The second thing is that I feel like educational courses look a lot better on paper than they do in practice. And I think with an educational course, I just don't really know how much that's going to do, because, like, yes, will it teach the players how to be smarter with the money? But again, at the end of the day, it's out of their control. So maybe the NFLPA could explore some sort of system where they have their own representatives that they could have as resources. And then maybe that's where the educational courses are instituted. So that could be an option. And I also think, I think with these athletes, they don't really want to worry about where the money goes, right? They want to focus on the game and developing, especially the rookies, right? Because they're trying to make a name for themselves.
But this is targeted to where the rookies, where they are not able to, like you said, that they want to invest all their time into progressing, but obviously they'll have times where they want to like blow their money and party too. And so, like, you make a good point. I agree. Like, it on paper it does sound a lot better, but at the end of the day, what harm is it doing if it's an additional requirement to have for these players? We have a requirement to register for our classes: alcohol education, sexual relationship education, stuff like that. We have to take that, and that's like what we would consider a course that we have to take. And why can't the NFLPA implement that for NFL players, but like an actual course, not just an online course, like a course that
In person.
athletes have to
In
sit
person.
in and go through the motions no matter what, because at the end of the day, these guys are getting paid a lot of money. They should be able to, it should be a requirement, I guess, an obligation for the NFL to be able to educate them properly before they go out in the field. Because
the thing is that they would have to make the teams, right? It's at a team.
it's
level,
a team, yeah.
Right, because I think the easiest way to
is it a team level or is it a league level?
Well, I think it's a league level, but the league for most of the things the league does, it has to get team approval.
Yeah, by all
Right?
owners, right?
Right.
Yeah,
That's how it works.
yeah.
So, I mean, would the owners really be opposed to some educational in-person class? That,
I don't think so.
Is
especially
whatever.
if it's instituted early in the college level.
Well, I think that's when it should start.
Exactly.
Because that's when it does start, right? I mean, now maybe it should even start in high school. Because seriously,
Yeah.
because all these athletes are making all this money in NIL in college, and that's where it starts now. Like that, I mean, every year we're seeing college sports become more and more like professional sports with gambling,
100%.
with NIL, with sponsorships, with partnerships, endorsements, all that stuff. And I think as each year goes on, more and more we're seeing college sports quickly become like professional sports, which a lot of people are upset about because of the integrity and whatnot. I still think college sports and NFL and professional is they're always going to be, I think they're going to be way different. Just the atmosphere, the feeling around them. But, that's definitely a big part. I mean, obviously endorsements, partnerships, it's a huge part of sports. It's where a lot of the money comes from. So I think going back to what I was talking about, the team owners, I mean, what's the downside, right?
What's the downside? What is the downside?
If it doesn't work, so what?
Exactly. And it goes back to your point when you said the NFL, they can't control these players what they do with their money, but they can at least educate and inform them on the best choices possible to make, and to be able to not get themselves into scenarios where they end up killing a random person, or where a draft prospect now may have trouble finding a team to draft him because now he has a DWI charge. He's arrested. So I think that's a very important part that the league needs to implement, education for these players to be able to just handle themselves better when they face the real world, because a lot of their time also goes into just developing their athletic performance, athletic ability, and they don't have a lot of time to be able to be told things like, hey, you're doing too much partying or something, or you're doing too much this or that. So I think that's where the NFL could come in and like show a little education, give some wisdom, give some education. But switching topics back to quarterbacks with our last topic of the day. The Cowboys and Dak Prescott. How much further do you see the Dak train going in Dallas?
All right, I'm going to speed run this topic because I think for me, and I don't know if I'm going against what everybody else is saying, but I think the Cowboys should just stick with him.
Really?
Because I think at this point in his career, right, he just finished up his 8th year there. He's been there for so long already. I just don't see him with another team. I just don't. I don't know why. I feel like every time I think of the Cowboys now, and it's obviously because he's been there for 8 years, I just think of Dak. And look, have they not had great success in the playoffs because of him? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I feel like things just haven't worked out for them in the playoffs every year. But I think if the Cowboys give Dak time, and they need to be behind him. I feel like so many people are just anti-Dak now that his confidence may not just be there anymore. But I think if you give him more time and give him a few more seasons, I think it'll eventually happen. Just because Dallas has too much money, too big of a fan base, too much talent to not make it happen. And I think Dak has the potential. I think we've seen it. I mean, in the regular season, like they always do super well in the regular season. And then as soon as the playoffs, it's just a downhill. It's just always, that's how it is. And I think eventually one year they're going to make a breakthrough.
Listen, I think that's a good take, but one quarterback I compare Dak to? Baker Mayfield. And it's because they've had very similar success. in terms of Baker Mayfield having 2 playoff wins. Dak Prescott also has 2 playoff wins. But when you look at both teams that they were on, how much support they had on each team, Baker Mayfield, when he saw his success, he had talent, but just recently in Tampa, not like outstanding talent like a Super Bowl team around him, but he still got a playoff win. He was still able to go to the playoffs and win that. Dak Prescott, on the other hand, can arguably sometimes have a Super Bowl team behind him. And is he able to produce that same magic that some other quarterbacks are able to in the playoffs? No, he has 2 playoff wins. And that's where it comes to the Cowboys needing to move on from Dak next year. I think after listening to your take just now, I think that was a good take. I think that the Cowboys do need to support Dak 100% if they stick with him. But if I were the Cowboys front office right now, I'd be looking at future options of what are we going to do at this position, because he's going to demand a lot of money.
Well,
and is he worth that money? That's the question. His contract expires in 2025. And they can get a contract extension with him for lower, like a lower contract of less value, and he's willing to stay there, then they can look at just drafting a new prospect in those times where they're giving him the chance to be as great as you think he could be. And then at the same time, look at prospects at each draft. Maybe draft somebody and get that person to be trained under Dak a few years. Then you'll have a new quarterback in there. But I don't know if Dak Prescott will be able to lead them to a Super Bowl in the next few years if they re-sign him. This coming year is the last year on his contract. There are a lot of big decisions that need to be made in Dallas.
Well, I think it's either all in or all out.
Yeah.
Right. It's at this point, because that'll have been his 9th year. I mean, that's a lot of years.
That is.
I mean, especially when the Cowboys they've always been good, but they've never been great. And a lot of people obviously attribute Dak to that. And I think, does he have something to do with it? Of course, the quarterback is the one who throws the ball. They're the one who starts to play. So obviously the quarterback always has something to do with it.
Yeah.
But I think if you give Dak more time, if the front office and the coaches can prove that they're behind him, then I don't see a reason to believe that he won't eventually make it to the Super Bowl and win. I think he's got the talent, and he's got the Cowboys. I mean, they're going to be good. And I think eventually one year they're going to make it through.
So I could see that happening, but I don't know who's going to be behind him. Because you say that the front office, the coaches, everybody needs to be behind Dak. Who can be able to build that culture of being behind their number one guy better than the head coach? And will McCarthy 100% back him up with his team? Will he? I don't know. But that's another question that whoever is in that front office making that decision with keeping Dak or not needs to also consider. Is it the coach that is the reason why Prescott is seeing some trouble sometimes? Do you need to bring another coach in there if you want to stick with Prescott? Or is Prescott the answer of why you're not going to the Super Bowl? Need a new quarterback in there. There's so many questions that the Dallas Cowboys need to answer this offseason, or maybe even next offseason. But obviously what they have right now is not working. It's working enough to get them to the wild card, but that's it. And that's not good enough for that Dallas fan base,
No.
for this Dallas team. And they need to come up with some solution, whether it's getting a new coach, getting a new quarterback, who knows?
Well, I think they're going to have a big decision to make when Dak's contract expires.
100%. This next year is a big year to watch for him. I mean, we'll see, I guess. But that's all we have today for 4th and Goal. I'm Joey Lafko.
I'm Robert Westerman.
And thank you guys.